If you strip the role down to its core responsibility, the Prime Minister's primary duty is to safeguard the country. And during Prime Minister's questions today, Kemi Badenoch stood up and directly challenged Keir Starmer on that very point. Her argument was clear. She questioned whether the government is doing enough to protect national security. She pointed to growing criticism, including warnings from senior figures about complacency at the highest levels. At the center of it all was one pressing question. Where is the long-term plan to strengthen the country's defenses?
Mr. Speaker, he says he doesn't agree with Lord Robertson. Lord Robertson is a former Labour Defence Secretary, a former NATO Secretary General. He also said, and I quote, "We are underprepared, we are underinsured, we are under attack." He said...
Order. Sorry? Yeah. I don't think it looks good, shouting somebody down at the dispatch box. Come back now.
Mr. Speaker, Lord Robertson's criticisms were of the Prime Minister, and he said Britain's national security is in peril. Our armed forces are at the end of their tether, waiting for this government to fund the Strategic Defence Review. There are still 2 weeks of the parliamentary session left. So why wouldn't the Prime Minister publish the Defence Investment Plan before?
The response from Keir Starmer was anything but restrained. Visibly frustrated, he reacted with sharp gestures and a confrontational tone directed across the opposition benches. He accused critics of inconsistency, suggesting they had previously supported more aggressive foreign policy decisions while also being responsible for weakening military capacity during their time in power. The exchange quickly moved from policy discussion into a heated political clash.
Military and the defence industry want to hear about what he's going to do, not him prosecuting past governments. He promised the Defence Investment Plan would be published last autumn. I asked him at PMQs 6 weeks ago when it would be published. He had no idea. It is now the middle of April. What's the hold-up?
Mr. Speaker, I've set out my position. The Defence Investment Plan is the first line-by-line review of defence budgets for 18 years. She talks about talking. If you're going to support and make your country safe, you have to get the right calls on the big issues. She called for us to jump into the war. They could pretend otherwise. I remember walking in, standing here for the first time, saying we would not get drawn into the war, we would not join the offensive, and they all shouted, shame. They remember it. I remember it. They're just embarrassed by it now. We are reforming welfare and spending more on defence. They did neither. The welfare bill rose by £88 billion on their watch. It soared by £33 billion under the shadow Chancellor's watch. We're fixing it. What did they do? They voted against it. They voted to keep the broken system. So taking advice from the party opposite on reforming welfare and defence spending is like asking Liz Truss how to keep your...
The tension between the two leaders was unmistakable, reflecting not just personal rivalry, but also the wider political pressure building ahead of a potential election. Polling trends suggest a volatile landscape, with both major parties facing uncertain outcomes if current patterns continue. Into this charged environment stepped Ed Davey, leader of the Liberal Democrats, who used his moment to target both international relations and the legacy of Brexit. His remarks added another layer to an already crowded and highly competitive debate.
In a phone call with Sky News last night, President Trump has threatened to rip up his trade deal with the UK as punishment for us not joining his idiotic war in Iran. Mr. Speaker, this must be the last straw. Surely the Prime Minister can't send our King to meet a man who treats our country like a mafia boss running a protection racket. Mr. Speaker, President Trump is one of the most unpredictable people we have seen on the world stage, and I hope he does not embarrass our monarch. But moving on, Mr. Speaker, last year the Prime Minister claimed he'd done some special deal, so Brits will be able to sail through e-gates at EU airports. But that's not the experience of families returning from holiday this week. Long queues at borders and passport controls are the latest symbol of the Brexit disaster. But they're also a symbol of this government's failure to repair that damage. So will the Prime Minister apologise for misleading British travellers? And can he tell them when they will be able to sail through passport control?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've made it very clear that I think our national interest lies in closer relationship with the EU on defence, security, energy and the economy. And I was very pleased that at last year's summit we did negotiate an agreement on e-gates, and we're pushing hard on that. We have another summit this year where I intend not just to make good on what we've already agreed, but to go closer to the EU.
Amid the noise and constant interruptions, there's also a moment of genuine seriousness. Ian Byrne raised a deeply important issue, drawing on his connection to the Hillsborough disaster. He pressed the Prime Minister on whether upcoming legislation would apply fully across all institutions, including the security services. It was a stark reminder that beyond the political clashes, real and lasting issues are still waiting for clear answers.
The Minister said 37 years today, 97 innocent children, women and men went to a football match and were unlawfully killed at the hands of a corrupt state. I was at Hillsborough and I was one of the lucky ones who survived and walked away. As parliamentary lead to the Hillsborough law, I stand here with a huge sense of obligation to the 97, all the families, including my constituent Debbie Matthews, every survivor and every victim of a state cover-up, who were all part of this collective campaign. There are signs of progress after last night's government concessions, but we've heard this before. Prime Minister, this is your responsibility. It is within your power to take control of this process and make good on your promise to deliver this legislation. So will you commit today to ruling out any carve-out for security services and finally delivering a full Hillsborough law worthy of the name, or will they be failed by the state once again?
Prime Minister.
Well, I know, as my honourable friend has just said, that he himself was at Hillsborough. And can I thank him for his decades of campaigning for justice. I am personally committed to working with the families to get this bill right. It is integral that their views are heard. We're discussing this precise issue with the families, and we'll make sure that he is fully updated. I reaffirm my commitment to delivering the legislation, to ensuring the duty of candour applies to all public.
Moments like this highlight the contrast at the heart of Prime Minister's questions. On one side, there's the noise, the rivalry, and the performance. On the other, there are serious decisions that shape the direction and stability of the country. Increasingly, there are concerns about whether leadership is keeping pace with the challenges ahead. And that's what makes exchanges like this worth paying attention to. They reveal far more than just political point scoring.